Intense intergalactic space battles, talking anthropomorphic animals, a world filled with dinosaurs, and... made by Rare? Starfox Adventures Dinosaur Planet was released on the Nintendo GameCube in September of 2002. This serves as Rare's swan song on Nintendo home consoles. Development of the game initially started on the Nintendo 64 as Dinosaur Planet. It was to focus on two characters, Saber, the knight of the Wolven tribe, and Crystal, his adopted sister. That's right, Saber and Crystal were brother and sister. But not Fox and Crystal. That would be weird. Saber and Crystal find themselves on Dinosaur Planet, which has been threatened by an evil dictator, General Scales. Shigeru Miyamoto saw a build of the game and noticed how Saber looked a lot like a certain fox from a certain Star team. And he suggested, hey, maybe we can make this a new Star Fox game. A lot of people seem to hate that happened, but to be fair, who wouldn't want to use an IP like that? I know I would if I was a game developer. What an amazing opportunity. Anyways, the team got to work and converted Dinosaur Planet into Starfox Adventures as we know and love it today. The game at release initially received generally positive reviews, with an IGN reviewer stating at the time, Starfox Adventures arrives as a truly excellent 3D action adventure for GameCube owners, and another reviewer over at GameSpot saying, Starfox Adventures is simply a great game in most every respect. So why does it seem the reception nowadays isn't as positive? Is this game bad? Bland? Did it age poorly? Or are people just being harsh and overly critical about a game from 2002? Let's get into it. I'm Jiggylookback, and I'm a Starfox Adventures defender. As usual, I asked my community among several social sites to see what they had to say, and gathered collective thoughts of what makes this game good or bad. And I gotta say, every time I'm blown away by the amount of responses I get, but I think this may very well have been the most responses I've gotten, period, so far. It took me a few days to cycle through all the responses, but finally, I think I narrowed it down to a few points. Probably the biggest point I saw was the Starfox IP itself. This game started out as Dinosaur Planet with an original plot and two distinct characters you're swapping between. But with the Starfox IP, Crystal takes a backseat, only playable in the first bit of the game, and being trapped for Fox to rescue her, thus making the whole game about Fox McCloud. Not using this super interesting and mysterious character feels like a missed opportunity. I think everyone would have wanted to explore more of Crystal's origins and maybe gotten a glimpse of her home planet. In the classic Star Fox gameplay, well, it's sort of here. We get R-Wing shooter sections when we fly to different parts of the world. These function as pre-level minigames and do not take a front row seat in this game. Although I will argue that the R-Wing missions, though super short, feel pretty Star Foxy. Even if we're missing the charge shot, they did get a lot right. Adding a function to gold rings aside from just health enhancement is a welcome addition. You have to fly through a set amount, gradually getting higher as you progress to different worlds, though even the most casual Star Fox player will find this pretty easy. And with the IP tacked on, we have probably the worst hostile takeover as we've been prepping to fight for the entire game against General Scales, who had a lot of depth to him, and let's be honest, every kid wanted to smack with that staff and teach him a lesson after what he was doing to that poor little Cloud Runner baby. He seriously, though, was a very cool character that met a horrible and dissatisfying end to a mysterious voice that's been calling the shots the whole time, aka Andros, the main villain of the Star Fox series. The best part of this, though, we get a pretty unforgiving R-Wing battle as the final boss fight. It seems like such a weird and unnecessary decision, though I do like how they tie in the Krazoa spirits to reviving him. Up to this point, we play almost the entire game on foot with the staff. It would have been better if we switched to Crystal with staff gameplay on the ground and then Fox in the air fighting General Scales and Andros simultaneously. Perhaps Scales is trapping the Krazoa and guarding the machine thing, and this gives Andros a shield. Taking out Scales on the ground and the machine would open Andros up to attack. That would have been a way more interesting route, I think. The second common complaint I hear is about the combat. Listen, I'm not going to sugarcoat the combat in this game. This was one of my top GameCube games, and I remember the epic looking combos I did to defeat enemies. And to be fair, that's still here. The combos do look uber epic. However, the actual gameplay is a little bland with it. Essentially, you have an enemy approach you, yes, one at a time, even if there's multiple. They will block attacks until you find your opening, and then you smack, smack, smack by mashing A. But really, you only need to hit them with the end of the combo, which will take half their heart away. You can move the joystick in a direction and Fox will do different moves that honestly are animated just brilliantly and look awesome. but virtually all your attacks do nothing until the last hit. Many people I'm sure did this, but in case you hadn't, using the ice power to freeze them speeds up battles a ton. Once frozen, they're one-shot kills. I personally found myself wanting to avoid the combat entirely in some sections because I wanted to progress faster. Thankfully, the game does give you some ways to do that, like the previously mentioned ice ability for starters. Most areas are designed so you can flee far enough away from the enemy AI and it won't pursue you. And you even get a gadget later in game that disguises you as a sharp claw and you can just run right past them. To be clear here, the combat itself isn't bad. What it comes down to is your normal hits aren't strong enough and the enemy AI acts a bit simple and just constantly blocks. You have some super cool flips and moves like the sidestep sweeping kick that would take away half their health, but it's really hard to land. The Z targeting and all base functions of the combat work though. It's a fair critique to say the combat is okay. It's not bad, but it's not good either. It functions and looks cool, but it's slow and basic. It probably could have used a bit more time to cook. The third complaint I hear is a bit of an extension of the first one. As people complained about how the Star Fox IP was just shoot in, they also complained how the game wasn't Star Foxy enough. You have to understand, this game came out as a sequel to Star Fox 64, arguably one of the best games on the Nintendo 64. It was a completely on-the-rails space shooter that's super replayable. We probably should have gotten a sequel that played similarly, but for most kids like me, we were clamoring for Fox McCloud to be on foot and have an adventure, and that's what we got. But what we didn't expect was for it to play like Zelda. You have Z targeting, exploration, puzzle solving, abilities and gadgets you get along the way to unlock previously inaccessible areas. All the bare bones of Zelda are here, and for the most part, the game does a decent job at it. I won't say it's of the caliber of Wind Waker, which was on the horizon, but it was solid. It expanded the basics slightly, but kept things pretty standard. The puzzles generally were simple and straightforward, which in all honesty was appreciated. As I went back and played this game, I had almost no issue at any point with what I needed to do. And if I did have an issue, well, our old pals Peppy and Slippy would set me on the right track. It was cool to have essentially a player's guide within the game, and a neat way to give Fox some interaction with the rest of the crew. The game also provides you with Zelda-like secrets and things like hidden breakable walls and paths, but it doesn't really reward you too well for finding them. You usually get some sort of basic item or fuel cells for your R-Wing. This complaint of not being Star Foxy enough also extends to those R-Wing missions. People seem to want way more of them and for them to be longer, myself included. Except for that last fight, it dragged out way too long. The final major complaint was, well, a classic Rare thing. They could be categorized differently, and you've probably heard me talk about these before, but let's just call it like it is. Some of the minigames. Specifically the test of strength against this muscle freaking Lightfoot where you tap A. Lots of people said they couldn't get past this. Though I think people need to go back and try it again because maybe that's when they were kids. Watch my hilarious fight with him. This is real time. Yeah. It was pretty freaking easy. No lie. Just a normal GameCube controller. There's no turbo function trickery going on here. I literally just tapped the button really fast. Now follow up this minigame with the one that people complained about even more so. As much as people complained about this Lightfoot match, they complained way more about the test of fear. Okay guys, I hear you. You have to keep the line in the highlighted section of the meter. It's sort of tough, I'll say, but again, it only took me 3 tries to beat it on this playthrough. I'm sure younger me would have struggled, but it's like grinding in Tony Hawk. Just practice. It's not a long segment. You can do it. I believe in you! Those are pretty much the major complaints. But there were some other minor complaints that I heard pop up several times, so let's get into it. Like this animation for collecting items. I'll agree, it really does get irritating. You can't skip it, and it happens all the time. But it happens so much I honestly thought it was pretty funny. If this game ever gets a redo, they definitely should allow you to skip it. That's change number 1. Seriously, change number 1. Just allow us to skip all cutscenes, and this one in particular. But it really was not a major issue in this game. It was just something quirky that they could probably fix pretty easy. A few people complained about Tricky, but that doesn't feel justified. I'm gonna defend Tricky. I think as far as companions in games go, he's probably one of the better ones. He says some funny things to you every once in a while, and some could probably find it frustrating, but I enjoyed it. His AI works pretty well, he sticks with you and doesn't really seem to be a hindrance. You even get a few fun little things, like if you buy his ball from the shop, he'll prompt you with a "let's play," and if you play enough times, he'll actually change color. It doesn't really seem to do anything. I don't know, maybe it affects the rate at which he goes through these mushrooms, because it seemed like after the first color change, the mushroom actually went to half rather than taking a full mushroom when I used his flame command, but I don't know, I could have just been not paying attention. Now I want to get into what I think this game does right, and why I think it does not deserve the hate. Let's start with the graphics. This game is still good looking. It's 2024, folks. I still think it looks good. From the fur physics to the water physics, you'll be in awe of Dinosaur Planet. Every environment is designed with care and just beautiful. Even every character looks really good. Some probably a little too good, based on some of the replies I got on Twitter. But this whole game is a vibe. The plot, the story, the characters, the environment, everything about it just feels cohesive, and this mysterious world. And freaking dinosaurs! Who doesn't love dinosaurs? Come on, guys. But seriously, looking as this is an early GameCube title, it really showed what this console could handle against the on-the-rise Xbox and PS2. Man, this is definitely one of the prettier GameCube games, especially in the early life of the GameCube. And the music? Oh, this music, come on. David Weiss got his hands on Starfox tracks, and it's phenomenal. The main track is such a good revamp of the Starfox theme from 64, and we often get these little cues and callbacks to previous Starfox tracks that somehow feel like they always belonged in this game. And the original gems, like Thorntail Hollow, keep us in high spirits as we explore a world of friendly and sometimes not so friendly dinosaurs. And speaking of high spirits, the mysteries of the Krazoa are further amplified by Weiss's music. Man, this is one of those soundtracks I could just listen to on repeat. It's so freaking good. I also think the voice acting, though the dialogue can be cheesy at times, is pretty solid. Each character feels distinct and has tons of charm. Some people may not be super overly thrilled by the voice acting, but those complaints were few and far between. I think everyone kind of enjoyed the cheesy dialogue and the gibberish and everything as a complete package. It's overall solid. If I had to say my favorite thing about this game, it has that rare charm. From the characters to the world to all of it, it feels like one cohesive adventure that while it has some stakes, it still feels very lighthearted and fun. Is this game perfect? No, of course not. No game really is. Some may get close. This game really doesn't get that close. But is it bad? No, not at all. I was very happy to see so many just talk about how much they love this freaking game and want to follow up. Starfox Adventures Dinosaur Planet is a good game. You should definitely go back and give it a shot if you've never played it, and if you had never finished it, which a lot of you hadn't, what are you waiting for? Go back. You may find those challenges that you found impossible as a kid are fairly easy now, like I did. Hopefully one day we will get another journey out there in the Lilat system, maybe even another adventure. Well, that's all I have for you. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe to help me get my content out there more. The more likes I get equals the more views I get, and the more views I get, the more content I put out. That's how that train works, so I'd really appreciate it. Also, go back and check out some of my other videos if you like this. Until next time, have a good one. Jiggylookback!